Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I am very excited for our conversation today, talking about taxes in Washington. I'm very excited to have Katie Koontz with the Department of Revenue, Ryan McFerran with the United Way of King County, and Cindy Gossett with AARP Tax-Aide. I'm really looking forward to handing the conversation over to them, but just first, a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, I encourage everybody to ensure that you're muted and to take the time to introduce yourself in the chat. There's an option to view captions for our webinar today. Navigate your way to the menu and the closed caption button. As we're going, please add your questions to the chat box or raise your hand as questions come up. We will try and keep an eye on the chat feature, as well as our wonderful raise hand option. And last, as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. It will go to our YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of this week, if not early next week. Next one is, there we go. Just as a little bit of an introduction to us as the Financial Empowerment Network, we envision communities where low and moderate income individuals and families are able to achieve financial well-being and build their own safety nets and achieve their financial goals. Our mission is to advance financial empowerment through partnerships that support access to affordable, effective, and relevant services, products, and other resources. We are behind the scenes. We support all of you doing the hard work of supporting clients and their financial goals. We serve as a liaison to create connections, disseminate evidence-based and promising practices, and to bring resources to a network of providers such as yourselves in order to integrate financial empowerment into other services, including all anti-poverty strategies like tax credits and tax resources. I encourage everyone to keep this workshop train rolling. Next month, we're very excited to bring Minda Michelle Maddox with Washington State Employees Credit Union and the one and only Devin Stubblefield to have a conversation around the power of relational coaching, how to connect with the people on the other side of the desk as you're having the hard conversation of money topics. Part 2 will be in March, so keep an eye open for that. Very excited about this year's lineup of workshops. Learn more about us at financialempowermentnetwork.org. I need to update that because you should actually go to fenwa.org. The best place to visit us. Thank you, Jennifer, for putting that in the chat. You can learn more about our projects and our programs like the Washington Financial Coaching Network, which is a great place to connect with other like-minded financial coaches, people who have money conversations with their clients, or really anyone who is in the work of collaborative and coaching work with our clients. We have 100 other projects going on, so please take a minute to check us out at fenwa.org. And you can learn more at fenwa.org/events. That is what I have to share there. While I have everyone here, why is that not closing? There we go. While I have everyone here, I do encourage everyone. The Department of Revenue will be holding a follow-up webinar via CPA Academy on the Working Families Tax Credit for anyone who is a CPA or interested in accounting world. The cost is free. It provides 1 CPE and is going to be on January 30th at 3 p.m. So I encourage everybody to take a deeper dive into the Working Families Tax Credit if you have really nitty-gritty questions after today. But please feel free to drop those questions here, and we'll do our best to learn together. All right. So before I hand it over to our wonderful presenters, I do want to do a little bit of a temperature check. I have 2 questions. And the first is, when I say taxes or tax credits, in a word or two, throw into the chat what immediately comes to mind, whether they be emotions, whether they be nuggets of information that you have or questions. When I say taxes or tax credits, what immediately comes to mind? And I'm going to pause here to let folks throw into the chat. For a long time, my biggest emotion was questions. It was the thing that I did every year to make sure that I didn't get arrested. But as I've learned more, I have a greater appreciation of the overall process and the benefits of filing taxes in order to get a little bit of money around the beginning of the year. All right, yeah, so we got a few thoughts, and while just one more thought or one more question that I'm going to have to everybody, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being I don't know anything, I'm just here to learn stuff, to 10 being I could teach this if you let me talk. How confident do you feel about understanding taxes or helping people file their taxes? On a scale of 1 to 10, if someone were to walk into your office and I need help with taxes, 1 to 10, your confidence level. I would probably admittedly be lower than 5, but that's why I know Katie and Ryan and Cindy. I appreciate everybody joining. These numbers mean that we have room to grow today. That is my takeaway. All right. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, without further ado, let's jump into why we're here, and let's raise those numbers. Let's raise our confidence and maybe have a bit of enthusiasm as we get started in 2024 tax season, which is legitimately right around the corner. Here to tell us a little bit more about one of the coolest things to happen to taxes in Washington in as long as I've been paying attention to it. The Working Families Tax Credit went live last year, and we had a large response from people in the first year of the Working Families Tax Credit. We are now entering the second year, so I'm very excited to learn about updates and just how the first year of the Working Families Tax Credit went. To talk about that, Katie Koontz. Katie Koontz is the program coordinator for the Department of Revenue's Working Families Tax Credit Division. Katie manages the Tax Credit Administration Unit that is responsible for processing Working Families Tax Credit applications. She's been with the Department of Revenue for 9 years, serving in various roles in both policy and in operations. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today. Educate us about things in your world.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. I will do my best. All right. Let's start by sharing my screen here. I should also get the chat up so I can answer any questions as we go. All right. I think I'm all organized now. All right. So let's kind of jump in. We're going to talk about the results from 2023 and then what we've got coming up here this year, the changes that are coming through in the Working Families Tax Credit Program. So I'll start with the exciting stuff, the stats and results from the 2022 tax year, the 2023 filing season. Some changes to our eligibility requirements, changes to our application, and then some tips on how preparers can help us with our processing times for these Working Families Tax Credit applications. All right, so program results. Total submissions, applications received, and this is all as of mid-December here, was 190,417 applications received. 55% of those applications came through our modernized e-file or MEF platforms, the organizations we partner with that have, tax preparation software. 41% of our applications came through My DOR, which is our free option for filing. And then paper applications accounted for about 4% of our applications. So total apps refunded as a percentage of the eligible population. So what we estimate that there are 400,000 eligible people out there in the state of Washington. And so we think we reached about 40% this past year. And that was our goal. So that's good. It seems like a low number, but it really is. We achieved our goal for the first year, and we just hope to continue to grow from this point forward. And, we could really use all of you to help us in doing that. ITIN filers were made up about 9% of all the total applications that we received, which is great because as we know, they don't receive the earned income tax credit. Refunds, total number of applications refunded was 161,829. I don't want you to think that 30,000 people were denied, because that's not the case. We had and I'll talk about this a little more later on, is we had a lot of duplicate applications. So one of the issues we're hoping preparers can assist us with is trying to limit those duplicate applications, and I'll talk about that a little more later. Total dollars refunded as of the middle of December was 115 million, 115.5 million. So that's really awesome. And the average refund per application was $714. I know we have United Way here and and AARP, and I know a lot of the volunteers use Tax-Aide to submit applications for working families. And so about 8% of all of our MEF submissions were from Tax-Aide, which is about 8,200 applications through Tax-Aide. So that's awesome. And then when it comes to family makeup, at least 247,000 children have benefited from our refunds. And so that's a stat that we love. And so we're excited to share that with you. All right. And if you are looking to receive flyers from us, you can request them on our website. Let me see if I can just copy this for you. Should be easy enough, you would think. And I'll put it in the chat. I don't know if that worked. Anyway, you can go to our website, which we have a new shorter URL, which is wftc.wa.gov. And you can request printable handouts in 20 different languages directly from our website. For some reason, that link didn't seem to work.
I'll search for it and drop it in the chat for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So what's new for 2023? So this is the 2023 tax year that we will be embarking upon here in 2024. So for the 2023 tax year, applicants no longer need to meet the EITC special rule for persons who are married filing separately. So what that means for the earned income tax credit that you can get federally, which the working families tax credit is largely based upon, there is a special rule that if you're married filing separately, that you one, have to have a qualifying child in order to be eligible, and two, have to have lived apart from your spouse at the end of the tax year. So that's still a requirement for the earned income tax credit, but it is not a requirement for working families tax credit. So persons who are married filing separately, assuming they meet all other eligibility requirements, can apply for the working families tax credit, even if they weren't eligible for EITC. Applicants who now have 3 additional calendar years to apply for the working families tax credit. So prior to this last legislative session, December 31st of 2023 was going to be the end of, the application period for the 2022 tax year. So applicants now have 3 additional calendar years to apply for that 2022 tax year, and that'll be the same going forward for all tax years. And we now offer prepaid debit cards as a refund payment option, which is great. We previously only offered direct deposit and a mailed check, and we had a lot of issues with folks who weren't able to, have bank accounts cashing those checks. So we now offer prepaid debit cards. There is an unfortunate caveat that I have to share with you. So we were informed by Tax-Aide that they will not be supporting our new prepaid debit card payment option. So I know a lot of you use Tax-Aide to prepare these working families tax credit applications. So if you have an applicant that expresses that they need to receive their funds by a prepaid debit card, you wouldn't be able to do that via the Tax-Aide software. You could either have them complete a paper application and mail it in, or drop it off at a local DOR office, along with a complete copy of their federal tax return. Or you can have the applicant complete an electronic application on My DOR, and you can do that through our website. They will need to create an account if they don't already have one. And they can always walk through it with you if you're willing to do that, or they can call our call center, and we have call center staff, there to help them walk through how to do that application. So just because Tax-Aide is not supporting it doesn't mean it's not a possibility. They just might have to go another route. So we have the updated thresholds and credit amounts. So the income thresholds are the same as those for the earned income tax credit that are put out by the IRS. And so those updated thresholds are listed here. And then we have updated credit amounts. So as you may recall, for the 2022 tax year, they were 300, 600, 900, and 1200 for the respective family size. Now they have increased with inflation. And so the new calculated updated maximum credit amounts are 315, 625, 940, and then the maximum possible credit is $1,255. As you may or may not be aware, the credit does phase out. There's a what we call a minimum threshold and a maximum threshold. So these are the maximum thresholds here. Once someone meets the minimum threshold, the credit starts to phase out. And those phase out percentages have also been updated to coincide with the new income thresholds and credit amounts. We just released an ETA through the Department of Revenue, which is an excise tax advisory that provides those updated credit amounts and updated phase out thresholds. And that will be updated every year as we update those. One of the best ways to get started with someone who you believe may be eligible for the Working Families Tax Credit is to go to our website and do our eligibility checker. It's a very simple and quick eligibility checker that asks the most basic questions about eligibility. It doesn't tell them exactly what credit amount they will receive. It just determines based on, some simple questions and income thresholds if they are potentially eligible for the credit. So they can do that before they get started with the whole application process. So how do I apply? I touched on this a little bit when I talked about the tax slayer issue, but folks can apply online via MyDOR. So it's always free to apply through our website. They just do need to create an account in order to do that. Folks can apply by paper. The paper application is available in English and then 12 other languages. Also, you can request additional languages if the language, the person you're assisting isn't available on our website. We have an email box available through our website that you can send an email to request additional languages. And it takes us generally about 2 weeks to get those applications translated when we receive a request. So yeah, you can get those paper applications on our website or at a local DOR field office. DOR field offices generally have the applications ready to go and pre-printed in Spanish and English. If you need an additional language, just feel free to ask for one and they can print it off for you. There was a question, is the MyDOR website available in languages other than English? Yes, it should be fully available in both English and Spanish. And we've added a new toggle feature to the top of our website that lists the same 11 other languages that our application is available in, that provides not a full translation of the website, but translations of limited information on the website. So fully available in English and Spanish, and then some limited information in 11 other languages. And then modernized e-file through third-party tax preparers and TaxSlayer is probably the one that you all are most familiar with, but there's a host of others. Other places folks can go to apply, like H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, a lot of your popular tax preparers. Unfortunately, TurboTax is not one of them at this point. We're working on that still. If somebody files through TurboTax, they can get a prompt at the end that will direct them to our website if they're potentially eligible. IRS is piloting their new direct file program, which will do the same thing. They won't be able to apply for Working Families Tax Credit, but they will be directed to our website if they're potentially eligible for the credit. Now I'm trying to briefly cover some of the biggest changes to our application for the 2023 tax year. The first one is we now have this question that asks applicants to identify their preferred language. So this is to aid in expanding our language access for applicants in the future. We want to be sure that people don't have an expectation that when they fill this out that they will receive all correspondence in their preferred language. We're just not equipped to do that at this time. We're really trying to gather information on, we know English and Spanish, that we need to offer correspondence in those two languages because those are a predominant portion of our application base. What we're trying to do is figure out what those next few languages are that we really need to get out the door so we can start corresponding with applicants in their preferred language. So this first year, it's kind of a survey of what languages do we need to have in our arsenal ready to go to best assist our customers. So question 11 on the application from 2022 has now been split into 2 questions. So it's now questions 11 and 12. There was a lot of confusion on the application last year around this question. So what we are asking is if the applicant claimed the federal earned income tax credit in 2023. If they indicate that they did, then they'll just check yes and move along. If they did not claim EITC, they must let us know if they meet all the requirements for EITC. So this is likely most targeted toward our ITIN population who is unable to claim EITC. They just need to meet these requirements for the earned income tax credit, so we can ensure that they're eligible for the working families tax credit. So this is now split into 2 questions. And we now also require that applicants input their adjusted gross income from their federal tax return on the application. So their adjusted gross income is found on line 11 of their 1040. And they'll just put that in question 18 on the application. And so this is because their adjusted gross income has to be below those thresholds. We previously just had them attest to that fact, but we found that over the last year, that wasn't a good way of having people apply because applications were still coming through with people over the threshold. But this will kind of stop those ones that don't meet the threshold from causing a backlog. Question 20, which asks about special income, now has check boxes. So previously we just asked them to check a box if they met any of these special income situations, but now we would like to know which special income situations actually apply to the applicant. So anytime somebody is indicating that they have one of these special income situations, those applications have to be reviewed by a specialist so that we can determine the amount of their earned income, which is used to calculate the credit amount. So if they're self-employed, a member of clergy, or employed by a church, employed by the military and received combat pay, statutory employee that filed a Schedule C, or if they had Medicaid waiver payments, they check any of the boxes that apply to them. Another change is how they can receive their credit. So we talked about how we now have the prepaid debit card option. So the prepaid debit card option is now on the application, and there's some items here we want folks to be aware of up front if they're selecting prepaid debit card as their payment method. And that's that we're only able to issue the card in the name of the primary applicant, and only one card can be issued. That the prepaid debit card will be sent to the mailing address they provide on the application, and that once a refund has been issued on a prepaid debit card, we cannot change the payment method. So please ensure that all information they've provided is accurate. And then we have a landing page on our website where they can learn more about the prepaid debit card. Right, so that is all with the major changes on the application. I'd also want to direct you to our Where's My Washington Working Families Tax Credit Refund page. We had a lot of issues with this off the bat last year. It's gone through about 3 iterations now, and we think it's in a really good place. So we think our applicants will have a much better experience using this tool this year. And that is our hope for today, or for this season, is that, applicants will get their needs met with this tool. They don't need to have a login to use this. They can go to our website and click the Where's My Refund link, and they just need to be able to provide the last 4 digits of their social or their ITIN, their date of birth, and then the income that was reported on line 1Z of their 1040, and they will get an update on the status of their application. All right, so how can preparers help with processing times? So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, duplicate applications have been a significant issue. So just letting applicants know that submitting a duplicate application will greatly slow down processing. If they need to make a change to their application, please just have them contact us and we can help them make that change. The major issue is a duplicate application requires that application actually be reviewed by a person. And so that's what causes a big backlog in applications that need to be reviewed by a person. And last year we found that a lot of people didn't realize that they had already submitted a working family's tax credit application because they submitted it through a tax preparer and they weren't really aware that this was the same thing. So just helping educate folks that, we're submitting your application for the working family's tax credit, so you don't need to submit this documentation to the department on your own. Ensure applicants provide contact information. So just let them know if they get a new mailing address, they should let us know right away. We've gotten a lot of return mail, a lot of return checks, a lot of stale dated checks. So we get the feeling that people aren't receiving the mail that we're sending out. So just communicate that it's important that they stay in touch with us so they can get their credit. And if we need additional information from them, they get that communication so we can get that credit to them as soon as possible. And also that the working family's tax credit refund will arrive separately from their IRS refund, and that the processing times for them are different. Some folks may get their working family's tax credit refund in 30 days, but for some folks last year, it took more than 90 days. So the processing time here is not the same for the working family's tax credit, and it's definitely not the same for the IRS. All right, so that is what I have to share with you in terms of changes and updates and how you can help us. Do you have any questions for me?
And if your question is still formulating, we will have time for general questions at the end. Thank you, Katie, so much for our deep dive into changes in 2024. I will post one more time that there will be an even deeper dive into the Working Families Tax Credit hosted by DOR on the 30th. If you want to learn more. Quick last call for questions. All right. Well, then, thank you one more time, Katie. I appreciate your expertise. And with that, I want to introduce someone who I really like their name, and thus I am unbiased about everything else about them. Ryan McFerran is the program manager of United Way of King County's free tax preparation campaign, which served 14,000 community members and delivered over $13 million in tax credits and refunds in 2023. Ryan was a case manager and supervisor in the workforce development field before joining United Way of King County, and is excited to discuss the benefits of free tax prep services and the importance of tax credits from a practitioner's perspective. Ryan, you are well positioned to speak on both federal tax credits in general, and the awesome work of the United Way of King County. Please educate us on the things that you know.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks to Katie for sharing all that great information and important updates about the Working Families Tax Credit. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And I was hoping to be able to keep an eye on the chat. However, I'm just on one screen right now, and so I probably won't be able to see if there's any questions that are being put into the chat. So if you, there we go. If you feel free, if you have any questions, come off mute, or if somebody else who's participating in the panel could keep an eye on the chat and just let me know if any questions come up, that would be great.
I'm on it, bud.
Appreciate it. All righty. So as Ryan mentioned, can you see the window of faces here?
Oh,
No.
was that what we're? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. I just want to make sure that what I'm seeing isn't exactly what you all are seeing. Anyway, so I'll be talking about the benefits of federal tax credits and filing your federal taxes. A couple topics that I want to touch on over the next 10 to 15 minutes are, I want to spend a little bit of time going over the basics of tax credits, do a little tax credits 101 for you all, then answer the question of why free tax preparation is important, both for you and for the community members that you serve. Then I want to give you some questions that you can ask the clients and the community members that you serve to assess their eligibility for federal tax credits and help them determine, whether or not using filing your federal taxes is a viable way of securing some additional income or cash assistance. And then last thing I'll touch on is next steps. Let's go ahead and dive into tax credits 101. Before I move to the next slide, I did want to ask everybody who's attending, if there's anybody who's brave enough to come off mute, I would love to hear if somebody could kind of give me a definition of what a tax credit is. I know we're going a little bit backwards after Katie spent so much time talking about Washington state tax credits, but is there anybody who'd be willing to share their understanding of what a federal tax credit is?
So federal tax credit comes in one of two forms, fully refundable or not fully refundable. And so when you finish calculating your income and you finish calculating all these other things, then you go to what tax credits are you eligible for? And if they're fully refundable, that means you could literally get back more money from the federal government than what you paid in over the year. An example, you had a tax credit of $1,300 and you only paid in $1,200 with withholding, you would be $100 greater than your total gross income. That's fully refundable. Not refundable is you get a tax credit that is dollar for dollar off your tax bill, but you don't get any extra money beyond your tax bill.
Boom. Thank you, Kim. That was wonderful. And that concludes my presentation. Yeah, that was a great definition. Clearly, Kim, you are very well versed when it comes to tax credits. And just like you said, so what is a tax credit? Yeah, it's extra money that somebody can get by filing their federal taxes. Simplistically, I think we can all think about what comprises somebody's tax refund. So we're thinking about people who are able to file their federal taxes and get some money out of it. There's kind of two basic things that go into somebody's tax refund. It's the amount of money that individual, that family, that filer has paid over and above what they were supposed to pay in income taxes to the federal government. It's their overpaid taxes. You know, when the reason it's called a tax refund is because they're getting refunded the money, the excess money that they paid to the federal government. Essentially, they gave the federal government an interest-free loan up until the point when they get that money back. The other piece of the tax refund that is really beneficial for people who are eligible are these tax credits. And as Kim mentioned, there's different types of tax credits. There's refundable and non-refundable. But at their core, what they are is they're direct cash transfers that people can qualify for based on eligibility criteria like their household income, their marital status, the number of children and dependents they have, but it's independent or separate from the amount of money that they've paid in federal income taxes over the previous tax year. And that's kind of the important pieces, is that separate. And just like Kim said, refundable versus non-refundable. So there's an opportunity to use tax credits to both reduce your tax debt as well as increase your refund, or even turn a tax bill into a tax refund, which is one of the, I think, most exciting things somebody can encounter when they're filing their taxes. I've definitely been in that position where I've seen I'm expecting to owe something, and then a credit or something comes in at the last minute and saves me and puts a couple extra $100 in my pocket. So exciting time when that happens. Here, I've provided a couple really kind of basic examples of different types of filers that we encounter at our tax sites here at United Way, and kind of what their tax situations could help them earn in terms of total tax refund. So this top line here, in this example, we have a single person who makes $65,000 a year. I'll talk a little bit about the EITC, the earned income tax credit, here in just a minute, but essentially they're kind of outside of the income range where they could qualify for a tax credit like the earned income tax credit. And so in this instance, very simply, this individual overpaid their taxes by $500 over the 2023 year. And so now in 2024, when they're filing their 2023 taxes, they're eligible to receive that money back as their tax refund. So this is maybe a situation that a lot of us are most familiar with. Now, if somebody instead is relatively low income or has children or other qualifying characteristics, they would potentially be looking at a refund that's made up of something else, made up of tax credits. So in the second example is a single person who makes $10,000 a year. So really, really low income, especially in King County where we operate and provide free tax prep services. In this instance, they were perfect. They paid every cent that was owed to the government in income taxes. And because of their low income, they were eligible to receive $500 in an earned income tax credit. And so in this instance, we have somebody who also would be receiving a $500 tax refund. However, that is entirely tax credit for them. So it has nothing to do with how much money they paid or overpaid to the federal government. It has everything to do with the eligibility criteria that they meet to qualify for those tax credits. And then there's this third example, we have a father of one who makes $25,000 a year. So in this instance, it's somebody who has a dependent, somebody who's still relatively low income and falls under the income threshold for the earned income tax credit. And in this example, they also did not pay a single cent more in income tax than they needed to for the previous year, but they were still eligible to qualify for $3,500 in earned income tax credit and $1,500 in child tax credit, which is another type of tax credit that's eligible to people who have children and other qualifying dependents. And so in this instance, this father is able to receive a total tax refund of $5,000. So a really significant amount of money entirely through the tax credits that they're eligible for. These are fictional numbers. So please, if anything seems off here in terms of what these people would be eligible for, please, don't hold me accountable, Kim. I know you're doing the math. And that's kind of the basics of what tax credits are. And then the one last thing I'll mention here is that as far as federal taxes are concerned, and Katie mentioned this, they're not usually available to undocumented peoples or mixed status families. Typically, everybody on the tax return needs to have a social security number and not be an I-10 filer. Moving on, so focusing then on the earned income tax credit. So this is one of those refundable tax credits. So this is a credit that can be used to both reduce somebody's tax bill as well as money that would go directly into an individual or a family's pockets if they ended up having a surplus when it comes to their tax refund. One thing that's really important for the earned income tax credit as well as the working families tax credit is that earned income piece. The earned income piece is key. There's a phase in, phase out model when it comes to EITC. So as you can see here, somebody who's going to be claiming the tax credit or wants to claim the tax credit, they need to have some amount of earned income to qualify for it, even if it's as low as just $1. There's additional criteria that are going to qualify them for more money in tax credits, depending on what their marital status is, and of course, how they're filing, whether they're filing jointly or filing separately, and then how many children they have, and then of course, where their income actually falls. And so looking at this graph, and this is from 2022, so there will be, updated figures and maximums and thresholds for 2023. I just was not able to find an updated graph out there, but this gives you kind of an idea of what it looks like. So for somebody to maximize their earned income tax credit, typically they're going to have an income of between $7,000 to $20,000, depending on their marital status and the number of children or dependents that they have. And the maximum that somebody can receive in EITC it ranges pretty considerably. So this red line down here, this is for a single filer. As you can see, the most amount of money they're going to be eligible for is about $600, whereas a family of 4 or more, if they fall within this income range, they could qualify in 2022 for $7,000. However, for 2023, I believe it's going to be closer to $7,500, 73 something. Another thing to note, similar to one of the recent changes to the working families tax credit, is that federal tax credits are available for 3 years. So this means that you have up to 3 years to claim and receive that money. So looking forward at the 2024 tax season, people are going to have, as of now, until May 17th to claim EITC or any other tax credits from the 2020 tax year. And so these are things, this is money that's on the table. It'll stay on the table for a little while, but there is a point in time after 3 years where if somebody doesn't claim a tax credit, they will lose out on that tax credit, and that money will be gone from them forever, unfortunately. Then the other one I wanted to quickly touch on, which I mentioned previously, is the child tax credit. And so this is there's a refundable and a non-refundable piece to CTC. Essentially, for each qualifying child under 17, tax filers can receive up to $2,000 in tax debt relief and up to $1,500 in direct cash assistance. So that's the refundable piece, that's money directly into their pocket. So for a lot of the people that we serve at our tax sites here at United Way, these are individuals that qualify for some amount of EITC, some amount of CTC. And so as you can imagine, these tax credits can really add up and provide thousands and thousands of dollars for people who really need the money each year. We like to bill, it is billed nationwide, but we like to remind people that EITC is one of the best anti-poverty tools that are available in the United States.
Hey, Ryan,
Yes.
I'm not a tax professional and you should seek the advice of a tax professional. Anyways, if you have received EITC and you have reason to believe that your income hasn't changed enough to eliminate that, you can change your W-4 withholding so that you receive more money each check. And 10,000 years ago, when I was getting EITC, that's what I did. And it made a huge difference because I was able then to better meet my bills every month. So that's just an, oh, by the way.
That's a great suggestion, great recommendation. Thank you, Kim. Yeah, so I think the next thing I want to talk about briefly is why free tax preparation. Hopefully everybody here has a little bit of a better understanding about tax credits and why they can be helpful. And so thinking about, especially for those of you who are practitioners, who are working with people who could really benefit from access to services and resources, and maybe looking at free tax preparation as one of the services that you want to send your clients and the community members you serve to. I think it's important to understand why free tax preparation is important. And the main reason in my mind, at least, that it's important is because it is extremely, extremely expensive for people to do their taxes nowadays, especially in Washington State. This map here is from a study that came out last year. It's the result of a survey. I'm forgetting the Drake software. They ended up doing a nationwide survey of CPAs, accountants, and other professional tax preparers, and asked them questions, a variety of questions about, what their plan was for charging for their tax preparation services. And what was found based on those survey responses is that the states within this region 10, which include our wonderful state of Washington, have on average the highest cost of tax preparation. So for somebody who's going to work with a professional tax preparer to prepare and submit a kind of basic 1040 form, they can, if you're going to work with an accountant or a CPA, you can expect to pay, and this is last year, about $250 at minimum. And then, of course, additional schedules, an additional, the more complicated somebody's tax situation is, typically the more they're going to end up paying for those professional tax preparation services. And then, of course, people tend nowadays to have a more complicated tax situation because more people are engaged in gig work. There's people who are dabbling in investments. Some people are doing the crypto, as you know. And so that can always complicate things, require a more complicated tax return be submitted to the federal government, to the IRS, and therefore somebody would potentially have to pay even more for that. This is an example, again, so anybody who really knows what the cost of these things are, please don't hold me to it, but just to give you a sense of kind of what people might end up paying going the different routes when it comes to getting their taxes prepared. This first column here is if they were to work with a professional tax preparer. In this example, the tax filer can expect a refund of $1,500. And as they go through with the tax preparer and complete these different pieces of their tax return, and pay different fees, on average, they can probably expect to only receive about 72% of that tax refund. So they're losing quite a bit of money just to pay for the cost in order to gain access to that money. The same goes for people who choose the self-file route, especially, if they do decide to use like TurboTax or any sort of paid self-file software. In the same example, $1,500. As I go through, the fee structure is different when you file by yourself using software or online. However, this individual can expect to lose 11 to 14% of their refund just, again, to pay the costs that it takes to actually gain access to that money. The one fee I really like to highlight when I'm going over this chart is this $39 fee that TurboTax charges. So a lot of people like TurboTax because you can use your refund to actually pay for the costs, but they also take an additional $40 out of your refund just so that they can take the money out of your refund, if that makes any sense. There might be, you could consider it kind of a scrupulous practice, but no matter what, people have to typically pay a lot of money in order to gain access to the money that they both overpaid to the government, as well as the tax credits that they're eligible and due. And then, of course, if they go to one of our free tax prep sites, as the name indicates, we don't charge anybody anything. And so they can expect to receive their full refund. We don't take any money out of the money that they can expect to receive. So I wanted to touch on a couple basic questions. And again, this is largely directed to those of you who are practitioners, who are working with clients and community members, and you may be trying to determine what sort of things they could benefit from. And so one question that you can ask a client or community member when you're working with them and trying to determine, can they benefit from visiting a free tax prep site or even trying to do their taxes? Because of course, somebody who's in a really dire situation, it's important to do your taxes, but that may not be a top priority for them if they have a lot of really other critical needs that need to be met. So question one could be, do you have a social security number? Again, when it comes to federal tax credits, I-10 filers, people who don't have a valid social security number, they're not eligible to receive those tax credits. However, as Katie highlighted for us, that doesn't mean that they're completely out of luck. Those individuals can apply for the Working Families Tax Credit as long as they meet the state tax credit eligibility criteria. Another question you can ask is, did you make any money last year? So thinking back to that graph that we just looked at, there is an earned income dimension to the EITC. And so if somebody didn't make any money, then they may very well not be eligible to receive any tax credits. And of course, if they're in a situation where they have no income, it may be more prudent for you and them to look at other options besides filing taxes at that moment. Of course, if they did make some money, then they could potentially benefit from filing their taxes. And then also, a thing to note is, even if somebody doesn't have any income, they may still be able to claim the recovery rebate credits, which are credits for any unpaid economic impact payment, from 2020 and 2021. And thinking back to that 3-year period, anybody who missed the 2020 payments, economic impact payments, that is hard to say. They will have until the end of this tax season to claim the associated recovery rebate credit. So again, somebody who doesn't have any income to claim, there may still be a benefit to them filing their taxes if they did not receive this money back during the pandemic. And then, of course, if they do have some income from last year, how much did you make? Thinking again back to that graph, people who earned, generally between $7,000 and $20,000, they're going to be eligible for the maximum amount when it comes to EITC, which is $7,430 for those larger families with 3 or more children or dependents who fall within that income range. And so whether or not somebody is going to dedicate their energy and their attention to filing their taxes, it could depend on how much they would benefit from claiming tax credits in that moment. And then last question that would be important to ask is, do you have any children? Because again, people with dependents are eligible for higher EITC, and they can also stack the CTC, the refundable part of the CTC on top of that, as well as any other tax credits that aren't mentioned here, but are potentially available to people. And then the last thing I want to touch on, and this is a situation where, you or somebody that you're working with can benefit from filing their taxes, and they want to move ahead with doing so by working with United Way or another free tax preparation provider. These would be our steps to kind of find out how you can engage with our volunteer tax preparers. First step would be to go to our website, which is www.freetaxexperts.org. I'll put this link in the chat. Just a note there, we haven't yet launched the updated version of our client-facing website because we are going to be opening our tax sites next week. And so I would say wait to go to this website until next week, but this is where you'll be able to learn about our in-person options versus our virtual service model. So we do serve people both in person as well as remotely. We'll also, on our website, we have an interactive tool so that you can locate your nearest tax site and also find out what the site schedule is. Some of our sites, we offer additional services such as ITIN support and application assistance. So we do have people, certified acceptance agencies, that visit some of our tax sites and ask them to, and they come in and they help people who need to either apply for or renew their ITIN to do so there on site at no cost to them. We do have certain tax sites where we provide additional language support as well, especially for our Spanish speaking clientele. And then you can also use the website to understand our scope and our income limits. There are types of tax returns that we cannot prepare for people. For example, if somebody does have some crypto related income, they would fall outside of our scope. And then we also have an income limit, which is, given the high cost of living for the area that we serve, relatively high. And it's also a tiered limit, which is a new development this year. So we're looking at an income limit of $80,000 for any single filers and $96,000 for any non-single filers. Once you or your client or you with your client have determined which type of service model you want to utilize, where you're going to go to work with a volunteer tax preparer, and that you confirm that you fall within our scope and income limits, next step would be to prepare for that visit by collecting the necessary documentation. It's really important that you bring your photo ID with you when you visit a tax site or engage with us through our virtual tax site. We also ask that you bring a social security card or proof of your ITIN if you are an ITIN filer or you're working with an ITIN filer. Also really important that you bring those tax statements. So W-2s, 1099s, all those really important documents that we need to actually prepare and file your tax returns. And then of course, if you're going to be filing jointly with the spouse, we need to make sure you are both there and present as we prepare and file the taxes for you. And then last step is to actually visit a tax site. Again, we have both an in-person and virtual presence. This map here shows you 19 of the 20 tax sites that will have be opening in the weeks to come across King County. There's one tax site in Enumclaw that was cut off the map. But as you can see, lots of them across Seattle and within the greater Seattle area, and a few more outside of Seattle in South King County and whatnot. Yeah, so visiting the tax site, you'll have an opportunity to work with IRS certified volunteers. So you or your clients, whoever you refer, if you're referring people to us to get their taxes done, they'll be in good hands. And everybody will be have all the knowledge and training that they need to prepare taxes. All right, and that's what I have for you. Take a peek at the chat. Nathan asks, is there a comparable free of charge service for individuals living outside of King County, thinking specifically of Lewis, Pierce, and Thurston counties, as that is where many of those I interact with live? Yes, Cindy, there's AARP, of course, and she'll be speaking here in a second. We're known as called the VITA program, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, which is the IRS program for the type of free tax prep work that we provide. And so there are VITA programs VITA providers outside of King County. And then of course, there's no requirement to live within King County to utilize our virtual services. So those people that you work with that are in Lewis, Pierce, and Thurston counties, they can definitely engage with us online as well. And looks like Abby has some information about services available in Snohomish County, which is great. Ryan put the locator in the chat. And yeah, any other questions? All right. Well, I will stop sharing my screen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan. And once again, a reminder that we will have a section of today talking about or available for Q&A. So if you need a little bit of time to percolate on your question, please feel free to write it down somewhere, and we'll have a space for that at the end of today's workshop. Thank you again, Ryan. As we know, all Ryans are superstars, and I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. Oh boy, my brain is already full, and I'm really excited to fill it up even more with a little bit of statewide resources from the AARP Tax-Aide Foundation, brought to us by Cindy Gossett. Cindy Gossett is a retired executive and a volunteer in the Seattle area. She is currently the Washington State Coordinator for AARP Foundation Tax-Aide. She leads a team of 900 volunteers who provide free tax assistance at more than 100 sites across the state, and has been a volunteer with the program for 11 years. Cindy has a bachelor's degree in physics and mathematics from DePauw University, and a master's and a doctorate degrees in physics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Choose any of those topics that you want to talk to us about, but probably about taxes. Cindy, share your wisdom with us, please. I'm looking forward to learning more.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. Let me share my screen. Yes, again, thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to participate. And Ryan and Katie have done a wonderful job explaining tax credits that are available in Washington State and federally. My focus is going to be a little bit more on where someone can go to get help in applying for these credits, or applying for the credits, or filing for a refund for credits that are due to them. So AARP Foundation Tax-Aide, who are we? We are a partner with the IRS in two programs. And Ryan mentioned these earlier. One of them is VITA, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. And there's also the Tax Counseling for the Elderly Program, TCE. We have over 900 volunteers across the state of Washington. Each year, our volunteers receive training and certification both from the IRS and from Tax-Aide. We help people in over 120 locations across the state. Primarily, you'll find us in libraries, community centers, churches, senior centers. And we've been helping people with tax assistance for over 60 years, or maybe it's just quite 60 years. What do we do?
Cindy, real quick, we are not seeing your presenter mode. We are seeing your editing mode.
Okay, let's see. Is that better?
If that influences, that is exactly the presenter mode.
Okay, thank you. Sorry
You're
for
good
that.
to go.
All right.
No worries.
We provide free tax assistance across the state, as I mentioned. We'll prepare and electronically file federal income tax returns with the help of the taxpayer, the client. We support direct deposit, which we encourage. In most cases, that's the fastest refund. So in many cases, the IRS says, asks us to tell people that they should get their refund if they have a direct deposit in 3 weeks. We have people come back and say, I just got my refund in 7 days. So we really encourage people to do direct deposit. Just to share, if someone is filing a tax return and wants a paper check, it can take months. Any kind of paper filing or that kind of thing can take quite a bit longer. So encourage your folks, if they have a bank account, to take a direct deposit. In addition to helping people file tax returns, we also answer tax questions. Sometimes people are comfortable filing their own return, but they have some questions. And so we help people with that as well. And we help anyone. There are no age limits. no income limits. People don't have to be seniors. They don't have to be members of AARP. Anyone who comes, we will help them. Last year, we filed over 33,000 federal returns in Washington, resulting in over $34 million of refunds, federal refunds, including that, as Ryan mentioned, there's something called the Earned Income Tax Credit. So in Washington State, we've helped people get $4 million of earned income tax refunds. Last year, we also supported the Working Families Tax Credit application and filed probably over 33,000 of those applications. So as I mentioned, there are no incomes or age limits for who will help, but we are volunteers and we aren't trained in all areas of the tax law, but we can help people with most common income sources: wages, retirement income, interest, dividends, capital gains, losses, those sorts of things. We help people who might be, like as Ryan was mentioning, gig workers, people who have self-employment. We can help them with that. We help apply, obviously we can apply for any credits for which people are eligible. We can help with itemized deductions and help people set up estimated tax payments. The sorts of things we can't help with are things that are more complex, self-employment, for example, with employees, any kind of depreciation on business expenses. Probably the one that's most common that people maybe come to us where we can't help them is somebody who might have rental income. Either they're renting a room or they're renting some another property. And virtual currency transactions. So if somebody's selling and buying Bitcoin or something like that, that's something we can't help with. Where we are, we're located at over 120 sites across Washington, east, west, north, south. There's a link here for what we call our Tax-Aide site locator. The locator I'll tell you right now is not up. It'll be up and live probably in the next few days. But if you click on that link, you can enter your city or your zip code and find what resources are available, what locations, times, days. There'll be information on whether or not that particular location supports walk-in clients or if appointments are needed, and if so, how to schedule an appointment. And it also gives some information on what to bring. So Ryan had mentioned some of that earlier, bringing an identification, bringing your important tax documents, those sorts of things. And I'll just mention other free tax assistance resources that your clients may be interested in. There's something called IRS Free File, which is essentially, and there's kind of two parts. One part is a guided tax preparation that's available for incomes less than, I think, $73,000. So essentially, it's like, quote unquote, I'll say, the tax packages you hear of so much, TurboTax. Well, I'm not even sure TurboTax is participating, but it's basically free tax using free tax software. There are also what are called the IRS Free File fillable forms, where people can actually, download and fill in their forms and send them in. As I mentioned, we're part of the IRS programs, the VITA TCE, but there are other organizations who participate. United Way King County is, of course, one of them. But there's some resources here for people who want to look up where they can find other free resources. And a new topic this year that you may hear a little bit about, IRS Direct File. This is a limited scope project that the IRS is kicking off this year. I think there's just a handful of states where it's available. One of those states is Washington. This is essentially directly basically providing software. IRS provides software for an individual to file their own tax return for free. It'll be limited to fairly simple returns this year. And I understand that the IRS is actually going to be inviting people specifically to participate. Okay, and I think that's all I have. If there are any other questions?
All right. Thank you, Cindy, for sharing a little bit about AARP and the work that you're working on, and the amazing 900 volunteers. Oh my, that is such a big number. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. Really exciting hearing about the $34 million that you're helping get back in the pockets of Washingtonians. Tax credits are more exciting than I think we started this this workshop. There was a lot of sort of like, oh, taxes are not as fun, but look, we're putting money in people's pockets. This is amazing. Oh dear. Oh, so with that, thank you to Katie, Ryan, and Cindy for sharing a little bit of your wisdom. Before we get too much further, I have a request for everybody. I'm going to throw it into the chat. Please take a minute to complete a survey on today's workshop. And also, I want to open up the floor. We have some time left for any general tax questions or resource guidance. I believe Mary in the chat earlier asked a very wonderful question of how easy or difficult is it to apply for the Working Families Tax Credit, I believe. And is there any training available to help us as practitioners refer folks to the application process? I'm going to throw it to Katie and or Ryan and or Cindy.
Sure, I can start. I like to think it's relatively easy. So there's just a couple things to keep in mind. If somebody's using a tax preparer to, outside of AARP or, United Way, those free tax preparers, if you're using someone like H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt, they are going to charge applicants to apply for the Working Families Tax Credit. However, we have software that applicants can use to file directly through the Department of Revenue, and it's pretty user-friendly. Folks need to be able to provide their complete tax return. So if they're applying for the 2023 tax year, we have to have their full 2023 federal tax return submitted to us along with their application. And as long as we receive everything we need, that application can be processed really quickly and can be a pretty easy process. On our website, there are a lot of tools. I really encourage you to check it out. It's wftc.wa.gov. You'll find in our information section, we have a series of videos about the eligibility requirements, about how you apply. Those videos are really short, but they're very content filled. So most of the videos are between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. So it's not a huge investment of time, but they provide a lot of really useful information about eligibility and how to apply.
That's a great resource. I know that I threw it into the chat earlier, but let me see if I can go find it earlier. Could I ask Katie, Ryan, and Cindy to throw your emails in the chat for now, and we'll find a way to help folks get in contact with you in follow-up emails. Any other thoughts, questions, challenges that have come up in previous tax years that you want to avoid this year in connecting your participants with tax resources?
I just want to say, most of us in this room, Katie, Ryan, and Cindy excluded, are not tax experts, and it's super overwhelming, and it's like my least favorite topic. Sorry. But the thing is, we don't have to be the tax experts because there are already tax experts out there. So that's the exciting thing, that the key is to know where to refer people and how to get them connected to services. And I just want to highlight, Katie mentioned earlier, like there is social media graphics, there is really great information for all of us in our roles to help spread the word about where folks can get connected. Also, the Working Families Tax Credit Coalition has some really fantastic materials, like a whole social media kit. I love a social media kit, so I don't have to think about what to say or where to link people or whatever. And there's great resources already available. The IRS also has really great social media resources. The goal is really for us, the non-tax experts, to help spread the word so that everyone in our communities are getting the money back that they deserve. So If it feels like there was a lot of information that went over your head, join me. I feel the same, but like we can help spread the word about getting folks connected to VITA, TCE, and Working Families Tax Credit. Just want to encourage you, if you feel like you don't understand taxes, that's okay. Neither do I. It's great. Welcome.
For a half moment, I thought you were referring to me as a tax expert, and then I looked across the screen to Ryan McFerran, who knows more than me in my pulse quickened or reduced. A question in the chat: what happens if someone didn't file taxes last year and then they go to file taxes this year? Is that something that free tax preparation services would be able to help navigate? Cindy has unmuted. Cindy, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so absolutely. So for example, for Tax-Aide, we help people with prior year returns. So that's what we would call that they didn't file last year, their prior returns. So they can file for the current year, and we can help them file with prior years. So yeah.
Wonderful. And I also saw that Ryan answered in the chat. I love resourceful volunteer coordinators. And not a dumb question, there are no such thing. But is it possible to get a verification of non-filing? I'm assuming with federal taxes. The IRS website is kind of hard to navigate for not just you, Samantha. It is, I have strong feelings. But Ryan, Cindy, Katie, have you found an relatively easy way to verify non-filing? Or have a suggestion of where to look after we hang up this meeting?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it an easy place to check for non-filing. I mean, it's the IRS has something similar to what Katie was mentioning for Working Families Tax Credit, which is, where's my refund? But if you didn't file, it's probably a little less easy to say, where's my return that I didn't file? But individuals can sign up to have an IRS account and check on their account that shows, what's going on with their tax returns. Have they filed? They can look to see if they filed returns in the previously, and they can also do things which we call a request transcripts. So sometimes people can't necessarily put their fingers on all their tax documents for prior years, and if they work with the IRS, one of the IRS websites, irs.gov, they can request the transcripts and get some of that information that may be missing. I don't know, Ryan, if you'd explain it differently.
I am finding an IRS website that says that this is where you would request a transcript.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing that you were talking about the other Ryan.
Yeah,
Ryan McFerran, your thoughts?
Yeah.
I think Cindy, I think you did a great job answering the question. Nothing more that I could add.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that Working Families Tax Credit does accept tax transcripts. So if somebody has lost their federal tax return for the year for which they're applying, they can request their tax transcript through the IRS and provide that to us instead.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great questions, everybody. Any other thoughts, questions, challenges that we want to avoid?
I also just want to plug the IRS. They are very responsive and not scary. I think they get a bad rap. Nobody wants to call the IRS because you're afraid that they're going to try and collect money from you. But in general, they are very, very helpful. Yes, wait times can be very long, so be prepared for that during tax season, but they are very helpful. I also want to say the Taxpayer Advocate Service is a great resource if you are having any tax difficulties. Something that has come up for me in my work in the past is folks who go to file their taxes with their kids, and maybe the kid's father or other parent has already filed. And so then there's a dispute about who should be able to file with the children. I have seen the Taxpayer Advocate be very helpful in folks getting the return that they deserve when maybe the other parent shouldn't have filed with the children. So that's another service that I just wanted to plug, and I'll drop the link in the chat in just a second too.
Thank you, thank you. Love resources. Oh, good to know that wait times have gone down. I like hearing that customer service is a priority. That is a good thing to hear. Last call for questions, comments, concerns. Thank you for that post, Ryan. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, with that, I have two more requests for everybody. Please take a minute and register for next month's workshop with Fen, Financial Wellness Part 1, The Power of Relational Coaching with Devin Stubblefield and Minda Michelle Maddox. Really looking forward to that. Just the planning meetings that have happened in the last few weeks. This is going to be a very fun conversation that you do not want to miss. And if I can ask one last favor, please take a minute and share your thoughts on today's workshop in the survey that I just put in the chat. We at Fen very highly value your feedback and any thoughts, comments, concerns, or just insights in what you want to learn more about. This feedback is how we plan future workshops, and no hint of a lie, I spend lots of time looking at survey responses and trying to figure out how to turn those into exciting workshops for everybody. So please take a minute, share your thoughts, and if you have any thoughts, please drop me a line. I will also throw my email in the chat, but you should have received many emails from me just to arrive here today. I saw that somebody was raising their hand a couple times to ask a question. I will open the door for questions one more time.
Thank you, Ryan. This was very great session I have attended in recent times. So this is very relevant. I work as a case manager in REWA, Refugee Men's Alliance. So I didn't. What my question was, I was glad if my clients was attending this kind of training and even this session. So is it possible to invite clients, my clients and everyone? What I know is, including me, for most immigrant and refugee, we don't have this kind of we lack this kind of information and skills. So it's really good to reach out so many people possible. This is very relevant for many people. That was my question. So I already missed this. They already missed this training, but for the future, is it possible to invite everyone in my circle to attend this kind of trainings?
I love the idea of sharing information, especially with people who are looking for resources. For a little bit of clarity, are you asking for this kind of training for your network, or referring for immigrant communities to file taxes?
Yeah, both ways. For my colleagues as well, and my clients. I have clients, and so I work with clients, immigrant and refugee. So I believe this kind of training are very relevant to them.
I don't want to put Ryan on the spot, but I know that you have tax filing workshops that are relatively click and paste and ready to go. So I would encourage you to reach out to Ryan. Also, if you would put your email in the chat, I might also want to reach out to you and just connect and see how we can support.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple workshops that we offer, one being our Tax 101 workshop, which is specifically for people who are kind of new to the tax system, or newly arrived immigrants, refugees. And so I think we could potentially put something together.
Yes, and a reminder that we will be posting this online as soon as my computer likes me. With that, thank you everyone for sharing 90 minutes learning about taxes. I hope that if I were to ask you the one word thought about taxes now, that we might have a more positive answer or a more confidence in referring our friends and neighbors to tax resources, please, please, please reach out to anyone here. Our panelists, Katie, Ryan, Cindy, or any of us here at FEN, if you want to learn more about taxes or just want to learn more about anything in the future. We can't promise that we know all the answers, but we might know who does, and we'll figure out who we can connect you with. So with that, I'm happy to give everybody 8 minutes back of their day. I'm going to push the stop recording button.